to flight the agenda for today. Colleagues, this is the agenda for tonight. It's opening and welcome, apologies, and that's 1 and 2. 3, briefing by the DoD on contracts managed by Armscor on behalf of the Department of Defense, and the level of satisfaction with these contracts, including
recording in progress,
services rendered by the Armscor Dockyard. 4, feedback by the DoD on the outcome of the workshop with spares, workshop with Armscor on spares and maintenance contracting. 5, it's consideration of the 3 presidential letters of employment. They are dated the 6th of April, 2023. And then 6thly, we consider the program for the term. And then the 7th item is a consideration of the minutes, and we close the meeting. This then being the first meeting of the term, and I think we've agreed that the agenda for this first meeting would look like this. But just for formality, may I present this agenda for adoption?
I support.
Thank you very much. Support is moved.
Seconded, Chair, yeah.
I second.
Seconded by Motapo, moved by Mr. Mare and seconded by Miss Motapo. Thank you very much. So, but I've done it without checking if we do have the quorum, but I assumed we do have the quorum. Let me just confirm if we do have the quorum.
Good evening, Chair. Yes, we do have the quorum, Chair. We
Yes.
have 8 members.
Okay. No. Thank you very much, colleagues. Let me then take apologies if there are any. I'll start with members. Nandipa, are there any apologies?
Yes, there's an apology from Mr. Ebekulu, who is in hospital, not well. And then also Mr. Khwase, who is has an engagement at the Lutuli House, Chair.
Okay, so we have those 2 apologies. Members, are there any other apologies that Nandipa may have missed? There is none. On the side of the department, are there any apologies that you want to have recorded?
Chair, I received an apology from the minister that at 6 o'clock she has an engagement with the presidency, but if she finishes early that side, she might join our meeting.
She might join the meeting. Okay, so we record that apology. Any other? SecDef, do you have any apology to record? I've not seen is the Deputy Minister on the platform, Nandipa?
Yes, he is, Chair.
Yes, DM, good evening.
Chair, good evening, and to honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense, good evening.
Good evening, sir, and welcome. Right, SecDef, are there any apologies on the side of the DoD?
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Good evening, DM. From my side is only General Ramanswane, who is joining, but is being load shedded, so is using cell phone battery that might not last long. So he requested me to just indicate that, Chair. And I have General Sangweni, who is in Cape Town on duty. And I hate to do this, but he is also requesting that he presents first. That will be item 5, the presidential letters, because where he is, the network is unstable. If the committee allows. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other apology, colleagues? All right. It doesn't look like there's any other apology. There's a request. Colleagues, do you grant a request that we bring up item number 4 to before item number 3? Item number 3 will then become item number 4, and 4 become 5.
No problem.
Sorry, Chair, is item number 5, presidential letters of employment?
Yes, we'll bring it up to before number 3. Yes, that's what I was. Okay, so there's no problem with that request there. All right. Before I invite General Sangweni to take us through the letters of deployment, I just need to make these opening remarks just to give the background why we have the 2 items placed on the agenda. So the meeting stems from the following. On the 16th of February 2022, Armscor briefed the committee, Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans, on the status of maintenance of the South African Air Force aircraft fleet, as well as other contracts such as Project Bureau and the Project Hotel. Members of the Portfolio Committee and the Joint Standing Committee on Defense highlighted the low levels of serviceability, specifically of aircraft, and delays in projects for which Armscor is the contracting agent. Despite poor aircraft availability and some contract delays, Armscor presented its 2021-2022 annual report to the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans on the 12th of October 2022. And it indicated that it achieved all targets on capital acquisition, system support, and scheduled placement, and that it did not achieve targets related to the naval dockyard. On the 10th of November 2022, the Joint Standing Committee on Defense called Armscor to be briefed on the service level agreement they have with the DoD and its performance against agreed goals. The JSCD, the Joint Standing Committee, noted high levels of achievement as per Armscor's presentation, but wanted to know whether the DoD itself shared this sentiment. The Joint Standing Committee meeting on the 20th of April, meaning this meeting, will then provide the DoD an opportunity to reflect on its satisfaction with Armscor's contract management. Following this, the JSCD, the Joint Standing Committee, will be able to accurately determine the way forward, having had all sides of contracting management process. And then on the second item on the spares, the workshop that DoD had with Armscor on spares and maintenance contracting, it too stems from the same meeting of the 16th of February 2020. Armscor briefed the portfolio committee on the status of maintenance of the SA Air Force aircraft fleet, and members highlighted the low serviceability of these aircraft, as I said before. The lack of spares was, the spare parts was raised as a major concern. During an oversight visit by the Portfolio Committee on Defense and the Joint Standing Committee members to Bloomsbury Air Force Base in November 2022, the impact of a lack of spare parts for helicopter maintenance at unity level was clearly visible. Air Force Base Bloomsbury noted that some helicopters have been in deep level maintenance for more than 4 years. It is therefore of value for the Portfolio Committee of Defense to visit the deep level maintenance facility of Denel and engage the entity on its ability to support the South African Air Force. This has further, that's what we noted at the time, that we needed to visit Denel, and this had further operational, or has further operational implications for the deployment of the SNDF, as the force operational ability is highly dependent on effective helicopter support. Then on March 2023, the Joint Standing Committee on Defense called the SNDF and Armscor to brief it on its initiatives to improve the availability of spares for prime mission equipment. The SNDF indicated that it planned a workshop with Armscor in early April to consider means to improve spare parts availability and contracting. These engagements brought into sharp focus the ability of Denel to execute the orders, given its liquidity challenges, and the fact that Denel received a disclaimer for the financial years 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20, and has failed to produce 2021 and 21-22 financial statements on time, resulting in the delay in the finalization of the audits of the 2 financial years until they've been given new date, July 2023. During its oversight visit to Denel Aeronautics on March 27 this year, the Portfolio Committee was again informed of the impact of a lack of spare parts and the long lead times for spare parts acquisition. South Africa also does not form part of a spare parts pool with global manufacturers. So this meeting will then allow the committee to be informed of the outcome of the engagement with Armscor and to determine the way forward. I thought I should just give a brief background on the 2 items that we have placed on the agenda tonight, that these 2 items stem from the previous engagements with both the department as well as Armscor. So that then concludes my remarks on this. 2, having made these opening remarks, am I back, colleagues? Am I still on?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yes, yes.
Yes, you are audible, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. With all this now, I wish to invite the General to present the 3 letters, after which we'll then move to the 2 letters I have introduced. DM, any opening remarks before I ask the SecDef as well as the the chief joins to take us through the three letters?
No, at this point, may I allow the proceedings to continue? I can always add input once information has been shared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM. SecDef.
Good evening again, Chair, DM, and members of the committee. General Sangweni will present. However, it's the first time that he's using Zoom alone, so he might have a challenge sharing, but he's ready to present. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Acting SecDef, Dr. Gamede. May I now invite the Chief of Joint Operations, General Sangweni, to take us.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening to the Chairperson.
Sorry, maybe before that, Mr. Abonsi, I note your hand.
Yeah, sorry about that, Chair. I'm trying to share the presentation, but I don't have hosting rights.
Okay, please assist Nandipa.
He can share now, Chair.
He can, Mr. Abonsi can share.
Can I proceed?
Okay, now it's just put it in a, okay, presentation mode. All right, over to you, General. Thank you very much, Mr. Bonsi.
Good evening, Chairperson and honorable members of the committee, and good evening to the Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans and members of the Department of Defense in attendance. Chair, allow me to apologize that all of a sudden now I have a presentation under normal circumstances with the employment papers. I normally speak through it, but when now I was faced with 3 different operations, I then felt that it might be easier and quicker if I run it through a briefing sort of notes by means of a presentation, Chair. The aim, as we all know, is basically to provide a little bit of detail or content out of the presidential authority for the extension of employment of Operation Mistral, Operation Vikela, and Operation Copper. With the scope which will deal with these 3 operations. And I will start with Operation Mistral, which have got 2 slides. Just reflecting that the President has authorized this extension of this employment, which is for service in fulfillment of an international obligation to the UN, and for a period of 12 months from the 1st of April to the 31st of March 2024 under Operation Mistral. A little bit of content as part of that we submit to the presidency to consider the authority. MONUSCO's mandate is to counter the threat of armed groups in the Eastern DRC, as well as to neutralize the armed groups whilst protecting civilians and supporting the establishment of professional, accountable, and sustainable security forces within the DRC. The RSA capabilities that are deployed is the RSA Battalion, the Tactical Intelligence Unit, the Quick Reaction Force, the Air Medical Evacuation Team, military observers, and staff officers who are conducting peace support operations in this regard. The SNDF forces are deployed in support of the UN under MONUSCO, consists of 1,198 members with a total estimated cost of 1,035,842,286 rands. The expenditure for this deployment can be accommodated in the financial year 2023-24 Department of Defense allocation. I this time included this to indicate particularly that this Operation Mistral is funded. We do get a funding allocation, so can be accommodated. Then I'll proceed to Operation Vikela. Again, the President has authorized the extension of the employment for Operation Vikela, which is also for service in fulfillment of an international obligation towards the Southern Africa Development Community, which is SADC, which will be for a period of 12 months from the 16th of April 2023 to 15th of April 2024. Just a little bit of detail regarding this. The Republic of Mozambique is confronted by high levels of insecurity, as we all are aware, and instability in the northern province of Cabo Delgado and neighboring areas. They are troubled by the terrorism group Al-Sunnah wa Jama, which has been perpetrating acts of terrorism and violent extremism in the north of Mozambique, whereby a high number of civilians and security force members of the Mozambique have been killed and communities displaced. The capacity of the security forces of Mozambique is overstretched and is struggling to cope, which was the reason that SADC had to do an intervention. The insurgency and instability in Mozambique would result in a spillover effects to neighboring states in the SADC region, the RSA being one of those neighboring states. Terrorism is in our backyard as we speak now. Furthermore, the SNDF is contributing force elements and equipment to the SADC standby force in support of the mandate of the SADC mission in Mozambique, which is SAMIM, to combat terrorism and acts of violent extremism. This is important for us to understand that the SADC, how they approached this mission, is that they requested all member states to deploy their elements which are pledges to the SADC standby force. We have an arrangement that is SADC standby force, where all member states have to contribute certain capabilities that are required as per appreciation as contingency for situations in the SADC region. So we are deployed, taking from the SADC standby force pledges. The SNDF forces deployed consists of up to 1,495 members with a total estimated cost of 984,368,57 rands. The expenditure for this deployment can be partially accommodated in the 2023-2024 Department of Defense allocation. Very important here, we are saying can be partially accommodated, because we have not yet, since the start of Operation Vikela, have an allocation, a funding allocation for the operation. So in this case, I'm saying partial, because I'm not sure yet whether there is a dedicated allocation like other operations. If not, it will be that of taking somewhere to make ends meet. I'm not saying it is not, but I'm saying it can be partially accommodated as we did in the past 2 years now. I'll now proceed to Operation Copper. Also, the President has authorized the extension for this employment for service in fulfillment of an international obligation of the RSA towards SADC maritime security strategy in order to counter the threat of piracy and other related illegal maritime activities for a period of 12 months from the 1st of April 2023 until the 31st of March 2024 under Operation Copper. We are saying here as content, over the past few years, maritime piracy has migrated from the Somali waters down south to the Mozambique Channel. The RSA and other countries in the southern part of the Indian Ocean have over the past few years noted with concern that the scourge of piracy is extending towards Southern Africa. Maritime piracy remains a threat to all countries sharing these sea borders in the Indian Ocean. Joint and combined efforts have been developed in line with the SADC Maritime Security Strategy to monitor and deter the threat, as well as improve the safety at sea for the coastal countries, including South Africa. As we know, we are also considered as a maritime nation. Most of our economy does go through our seas. Furthermore, we are saying the shift in piracy activities to the SADC territory or region in particular has a potential to undermine and seriously affect the South African economy negatively. In response to this threat of piracy, the SNDF deployed naval force elements and capabilities in support of the SADC Maritime Security Strategy. And I hope we are all aware that Operation Copper, that's how it was initiated, that SADC came on board and engaged with those countries that have sea waters to address the piracy that was at that time seen in the Mozambique Channel, particularly affecting Mozambique, but there were indications and incidents indicating that they were coming down south, and SADC felt it is in the SADC region, it could not be left to member states on their own, and at this stage they were busy with the SADC Maritime Security Strategy, and through that strategy, the initiative of monitoring or patrolling our waters from the Mozambican Channel down south. Initially, the plan was all the countries that are FC, like the United Republic of Tanzania and Mozambique, to be part, and they were part in the initial stages of Operation Copper. And over time, because of capabilities, a little bit of shortcomings in this regard. The SNDF forces to be deployed consists of up to 200 members with a total estimated cost of 35,325,852 rands. The expenditure for this deployment can be accommodated in the financial year 2023-2024 Department of Defense allocation, because we do get an allocation for Operation Copper. That is the report to the committee and the honorable members. I submit, Chair.
Thank you very much, General. Colleagues, we now have the report before us. Let me thank you very much, General, for the presentation. Let me now invite comments. Let me check how many hands are indicating to make a comment. There's only one hand so far, unless I am wrong. Okay, only one hand. Mr. Murray, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, General, for the presentation. I firstly want to, I think, comment that the presidency for this prompt, letters to us. I think nobody can complain anything about that. It is reasonable in time, so we must appreciate that. Chairperson, you will recall that yesterday we had presentations in our committee meeting on the reimbursements. And we know that the reimbursements in Mistral there's an enormous downward money that we will receive for helicopters. We know, first of all, the Royvalk, they do not cover the cost, and then the Oryx availability is enormously hampered, and we will now deal later on with the contracts and with the spare parts. We know that that challenge is, and we know that the availability of those helicopters, those 5, we don't even have all of them available in the DRC. So this year, we will receive later this year, hopefully that 400,000 rand. And given the state of our helicopters and what we have seen at the NEL, specifically on the Oryx, there's no indication that that will probably improve very quickly. So that is a major, major challenge. And my first comment and then question will also be with regards to the cost of R1 billion. It means that based on what we will receive for last year, and given that that will be the trend going forward, it means that we will probably have at least 600 million rand that will not be recovered from the UN. So that must come from our taxpayer. So my question is, if it is said that as a general, it can be accommodated within the Department of Defense allocation, how much has been allocated and provided in the budget? Is it the 1 billion rand, or is it the recovery from the UN? Because in that case, there will be a shortfall. Also, we need to know whether the Royvalk costs, is that part of the difference between the allocated or the authorized costs and what we will receive back from the UN? And has there been specifically money being allocated for the use of the Royvalk, which we know is a challenge currently, and the Chief of the Air Force has indicated that he wants to anyway withdraw at least the Royvalk, if not the Oryx as well. So how much has been provided and budget in the provisions? And then also in terms of that 1198, we know that that is an employment authorization, and sometimes there's a difference between actual deployments and the employment authorization. Now, will all 1198 be deployed, or will it be less than that? Because that will have an effect on the eventual actual costs as well. On Vikela, similar questions will apply to Vikela as well. That, you know, of that 1495, how much has actually been deployed? And then if you say it's been partially accommodated, how much has been provided for to partially accommodate this cost? So, and how much is then short funding that we will have to, you know, steal from Peter to pay Paul on that? Then I want to specifically ask the question on the challenges of the equipment. We know that the second Oryx arrived there in Cabo Delgado with the obviously the objective to use that platform. But we know that it arrived there, it had maintenance problems, and now it is grounded until spare parts has been provided, and technicians are going to Cabo Delgado to actually get the Oryx up and running again. So how is that challenge has been addressed? We know that there was a problem in terms of logistical support for our soldiers there. And then, so in other words, how is that been handled so that we can properly deal with that going forward? Then the challenge of the relative long-term deployment of special forces. We know that we have received those complaints from the special forces that the objective for them, General, you will know, is short-term deployment and coming back. But it seems like special forces has been deployed for quite a long time, even up to 6 months and longer in Cabo Delgado, and that specifically can have an effect on the morale, the motivation, all of those kind of things, the defense readiness of those special forces. And we also know that in terms of the Air Force deployment, the crew deployment, there's a major challenge with available crew for deployment to both Vikela and Mistral. we can just deal with that. Then on copper, Chairperson, you will recall that part of our presentations this year was also that it seems like South Africa is the only country that contribute to Operation Copper. So, and the report of piracy has certainly, on the face value, it seems like the threat of piracy is less than it was in the past. And we also know that in the past year, because of budget and equipment constraints of naval vessels, nothing was spent on copper. So there was very limited. You will recall when they report on the annual performance, it was very much low. It's about 2,000 sea miles compared to, I think, 8,000 that was budgeted for. And one of the reasons was unavailability of vessels for copper. So where do we stand with that? And especially the threat of piracy, and given the fact that we are only doing it on ourselves, and we're the only country doing that, is that still necessary? And you know, how will we deal with that to bring other SADC countries on board as well? And then, so what will be the position, you know, going forward this year? Do we foresee that it will be limited in terms of sea hours, given that we still have not sorted out the, you know, the frigates and the inshore patrol vessel that is still on sea trials? How do we see this going forward in 2023-24? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Thabo Muthe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm affected by load shedding. Just wanted to put it as a disclaimer, so I'll not switch on the video. Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I think Honorable Marais has taken some of the question that I wanted to raise, but it's safe to say or ask a question in relation to what General someone has mentioned in his presentation around the readily available funding. I think it's for Operation Mistral. Within that available and allocated budget, I just want to get an understanding that out of that budget, if he is aware, how much is allocated for the platforms that are deployed for that operation or for that mission. I'm asking this question, Chair, because of the interaction that we had with both the Air Force recently on our oversight with regard to the challenges that they are faced with. And of course, the issue of spare parts, lead time will always surface. But if there is a budget allocated, I think those things can be addressed easily, because we know that there is budget available. Unlike the deployments that you are not sure when will you get resources that are meant for that deployment, relying basically on your reinvestment that comes a year later, so forth and so on, and you have to rob Peter to pay Paul so that you are able to fulfill your mandate insofar as the mission or operation is concerned. So I just want to get an understanding so that when at the later stage, when we interact with the relevant stakeholders that has to that must ensure that those platforms are serviceable and readily available for those deployment. They do not hide behind resources not being available, so forth and so on. I think that clarity will assist us to probe further when we engage with other services. Thank you very much. That are part of the joint operation that we are talking about or addressing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Muhle. I think that concludes the comments on our side. May I now invite you, Chief Jones.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the honorable members, Mare and Honorable Member Mutle, for the questions and inputs. Honorable Mare, allocation for how much will be allocated for Operation Mistral? I think the figure is there, it's 1 billion plus. That's the, okay, rather, let me put it this way. That's what the Presidential Authority has approved. It is what we submit as part of our request and motivation. Procedurally, we have to indicate how much it will cost, where the deployment will be, and how many personnel, those three critical requirements. And our calculations in terms of estimates has given us that 1 billion rand for the entire year. It's normally broken down to HR costs, meaning allowances, as well as goods and services. Just that I do not have the documents with me because I'm not in the office, but the categories is goods and services, and then HR costs, which include allowances, mainly allowances. So I'm unable to break it down further than that at this stage. That can be done by my finance people when there is time. The issue of employment versus deployment, you stated correctly. The figures that we have presented here with Operation Mistral, that is the ceiling, and almost every time that's the numbers that we deployed, that are deployed. The figure of 118, let me check, is coming to Vikela. You are saying numbers to be deployed, 1,145. That's why we are saying up to with Operation Vikela. From the beginning, we have been using that employment number of up to 1,145, indicate 1,495, indicating the ceiling as according to our appreciation. And then we commence with deploying capabilities as the situation develops, whether positively or negatively. But for the past year, we were on average at 1,100 to 1,200. For instance, now with the migration from scenario 6 to scenario 5, where scenario 5 requires more boots on the ground, more in the peacekeeping mode, it will then be covered out of this ceiling of 1,495 in the military part. With scenario 5, civilians deploy, the police, correctional services, and but this what we have. I'm saying we've been at around 1,100 to 1,200, so we are not too far off according to our appreciation. Coming to Then the other questions, technical questions of utilization and availability of our helicopters in Operation Vikela. We have what we have currently, which is 2 Oryx helicopters and a fixed wing. No, 3 helicopters and a fixed wing. Fixed wing currently unserviceable, undergoing service. When it's ready, it will come back to the mission area. But with this one, that is just a component of the RSA. Botswana have got aircrafts. The host country have got aircrafts. Angola do provide aircraft for strategic movement, as well as Zambia. So there are aircrafts which are used by all SAMIM or members deployed under SAMIM, irrespective whether you are RSA or Tanzania or Lesotho. So collectively, we have a sense of assets. We cannot say they are enough currently, but yes, there is. Coming to Operation Copper, previous 2 years, indicating 0 deployments due to lack of vessels. Yes, correctly so. And you asked if it is relevant to continue with Operation Copper. In the SNDF, we believe it is relevant, and we wish that the entire RSA must see it as relevant. We should not then only react because the piracy has at least subsided a bit, and then we are waiting to hit, and then we react. Currently, when we do not have vessels, this authority acts as a contingency. We must always have contingencies for this kind of operations. And we are hopeful we might have a vessel deploying this year with the new vessels that has been commissioned, just undergoing option test and evaluation. We're hopeful that it will be ready and it can deploy this year. We need to patrol our waters up to the Mozambican channel. And we presented to the president that it is necessary and relevant that OpCopper gets funded so that when we have vessels, we are able to deploy at the required time and having a contingency. Honorable Motle, you asked detail in respect of whether the funding allocation for Operation Mistral includes for the aircrafts. Yes, what is there again, it is not the funding allocation, is what we have submitted as the estimated cost for Mistral. It does include aircrafts, all capabilities that are there, goods and services, including HR costs. And whether the challenge of unserviceability will lead us to be able to get the adequate reimbursement or not, that is dependent on serviceability. I cannot say for sure we'll be able to get a reimbursement that is due to us according to the capabilities deployed. I thank you, Chair.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Chief of Joint Operations, General Sangweni. I think we can rest our examination of this item at this for now, because in the next 2 weeks we'll be dealing with the budget, and so the team, I'm sure they've started noting questions that are budget related, that when we meet with them, they'll be ready to give us a fuller, comment on them. So, because today was not ready to deal with budget. That time is coming, it's in about a week or two's time. But if you still want to pursue it, I will still allow you to do so. But I think we can defer that to when the time we look at the entire budget of the department. Marae, you want to come back?
Yeah, Chairperson, yeah, so just thank you to the General for the feedback. Obviously, it doesn't, answer our concerns. And as you've rightfully said, Chair, maybe we must deal with this in the budget process. But I've asked the questions only because he said it has been provided or it has been partially provided, so that we just know what we are dealing with, given what we were presented with yesterday, and those shortfalls and the downward spiraling of those refunds. So, because eventually we will have to look at priorities as well. And I know that the Chief of the Air Force has had similar concerns whether we can still justify that and afford that. So that was my whole question and the motivation for that. But we will deal with that when budget comes. But we have got lots of challenges and difficult decisions to make. Thank you very much.
Yes, no. I agree with you. Bonsi and SecDef, do we agree that we take a deep dive presentation on these issues when we deal with the budget? But I'm not stopping you from just giving a high level comment on them. Mr. Bonsi?
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, SecDef, acting SecDef, Gamete.
Thank you, Chair. I would rather say we focus mostly on budget when we present our APP for now, so that we come back prepared on what will be the shortfalls and so on. Because for today, we didn't prepare for that. So when we come back, we will know what you require, and then we will be able to give that information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marae and Thabo. Mr. Marae, you've already supported that. Thabo, are you happy with this approach? Have we lost Mutle? All right, it looks as though
No, Chair, I'm in agreement. I'm still just struggling with my gadget. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, no, thank you very much. Mr. Ryder, you are really out of the time. Do you really still want to make a comment? Over to
Chair,
you.
it'll be very brief just on this coming back issue. And I think that if we can ask that when they do come back, if they can just put us at ease that the men and women that are deployed are sufficiently catered for, because I think that that's central to our role as the Joint Standing Committee. So not only looking coldly at figures to make sure, but to give us comfort that our soldiers are looked after. I think that's got to be at the center of the discussion. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Your comment, Mr. Murray, is not lost. Mr. Ryder, is not lost. It links to the presentations, the two presentations that we are going to have. In that day, it talks to maintenance, but the budget as in figures will be dealt with in about a week or two when we deal with the budget. I think that has been supported. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Chief Joins, for your presentation, and you are then free to exit at any time you wish to. We can then now move to the next presentation. I'm back, Dr. Kamete. We're now going back to the next presentation.
Thank you very much again. We have Brigadier General Parense who will share for us the presentations, but Rear Admiral Morris will make the presentation on the project. I'm not going to give a background because, Chair, you sufficiently covered that in your introduction. Thanks.
Thank you very much. You said who's going to take us through Acting SecDef?
Rear Admiral Morris, who is Chief Director, Defense Acquisitions. He will take us through, and then Brigadier General Barrense is responsible for technology and will take us through the technology part of the project. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. All right, Rear Admiral Morris, over to you, sir.
Good evening, Chairperson. Good evening, Deputy Minister of Defence, and good evening, SecDef, members of the committee. As introduced, I am Rear Admiral Morris, and I will be taking us through this presentation in terms of the, that's the wrong presentation. If I'm just requesting General Barnes to put up the right presentation, the first one. The other, the one on the status of projects, and the that one, General Barnes, not. Apologies, Chair. We're streaming from Cape Town.
Okay.
Thank you, General Barnes. Can you just try to just put it up into slideshow view? Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, the presentation speaks to the status of projects contracted to Armscor and the level of DoD satisfaction, and it also touches on the Armscor Dockyard situation. Thank you, sir. Slide. Thank you, sir. By way of introduction, we are currently looking at the special defense account, which is basically includes the acquisition of defense equipment and strategic armaments, as well as the maintenance of required defense capabilities and the financing of sensitive activities. The red portion is the special defense account. On the left-hand side, we have got the SCAP, the Strategic Capital Acquisition Master Plan, which basically entails the renewal and upgrading of prime mission equipment for the Army, for the Air Force, for the Navy, common weapons, which basically speaks to special forces, the military health services, as well as CMIS, and then the last portion is technology development. Sensitive projects as part of the sensitive is basically the portion that is dealt with by Defense Intelligence, as well as Military Police Agency, as well as Special Forces. Chair, I will be taking us through the capital acquisition portion, and then I will hand over to General Barnes in Cape Town to take us through the technology portion, as well as the Armscor Dockyard, and he will also conclude the presentation, Chair. So the scope is as reflected on the screen. That is the capital acquisition projects, as well as the technology projects, and then Armscor Dockyard, and then we'll conclude, and then obviously we will we allow the committee to engage. Chair, thank you very much. So this is the SA Army capital acquisition projects, and I will start off with serial number 1, which is the water provisioning system. It was delivered in 2022. It is partially funded because the request was to deliver a division, but we could only deliver a brigade at this moment, and we have successfully delivered the brigade, and we are currently in the project closer stage. The air defense and control, command and control system and situational awareness, it is 50% funded at this moment, and we've got some challenges because that project is actually contracted to Denel Dynamics. Serial number 3, we all know that's Hoefyster, and we are currently behind schedule in terms of Project Hoefyster, and Project Hoefyster is also underfunded because of the imposed budget reductions. Serial number 4 is also a project. That's contracted to Denel, and that speaks to the upgrade of the 155 system, the G6, and the contract was concluded in 2019. But because of the situation at Denel, we are basically falling behind with that one, and it is currently red. The new generation operational supply support system, that's the vehicles. We have been partially funded to conclude the project study report, but in terms of the core capabilities, in other words, the acquiring of the systems, we are not funded for that one. In terms of the military operational earth moving system, the hardware was delivered, and but the contract date was already overshot because we were supposed to receive that by 2020, but we are now in the interim support phase, and we are now moving towards September 2023. Project SWATs, there's 8 parcel acquisition plans. The parcel acquisition plans, if I may reflect on that, the canvas, in other words, the tents as well as the mortuary were fully delivered, but the expendable capability, the ablution facilities, the mobile stores, the waste management, as well as the laundry, we are anticipating that it will be delivered in 2020, at the end of this year by December. But the challenge is actually with the vehicle-based products that is now only going to be delivered in July 2024, although the date was indicated as March this next year, but there's a new date that we are anticipating. The mobile and rapid deployment mass feeding system has been delivered. We've got some challenges with the codification as well as the codification. And we have also now identified very recently that we have to change from diesel to gas generators as part of the mass feeding system. And the new date, the date for delivery was actually 2021, but it's now also, we've overshot as well in terms of that one. The new date was indicated at March 2023, but we have not achieved that. In terms of the sniper rifle system, weapons were delivered, still awaiting for the ammunition. It is fully funded, and the new date for this project and delivery is March 2024. In terms of the gyroscopic theodolites, that's for the G5, G6, as well as the multi-rocket launcher. We are standing by for the INU's inertial navigation units, which must still come from Leonardo. That one is also contracted to Denel, and we have established that we will most probably only get that in March 2024. Chair, if I could go to the next slide, slide number 6. Thank you. Chair, this is the Air Force capital acquisition projects. The top one is is serial number 1, Denel Dynamics. That was the forerunner for the SRAM, the A-Data missile. We know it in the media, it's already known as Project Kamas. We have concluded that one, and we are basically closing that portion. Then we've got the replacement of the aircraft rescue and fire vehicles. It was contracted in 2016. We are now standing by, very much delayed, for the pilot rescue vehicles. The bid just closed, I think, the end of March. Yes, it was closed at the end of March, and therefore the expected delivery date is for 2023, but we are already astern of station because it was supposed to be completed and delivered by 2021. In terms of the Joint Ops and SAF, Air Force Command and Control System, that's the QRS update. We are currently closing that project. If we go to Chutney, that is the Air Defense Management, the ADM, and the ATM, that's the Air Traffic Management Surveillance Sensor capability. It is partially funded because we were supposed to acquire new systems, but because of funding challenges, we could only upgrade 4 of them. The current challenge is that there's a challenge with the technical testing of the system, and we now have a new date by the end of this year from 2021 to 2023. If we look at the air navigation system, we are busy closing that project. The Augusta 109 project, we are in the process of closing that project as well. And then on serial number 8, that is contracted to Denel as well, and that is the Rooival Combat System helicopters. We are currently just looking for the aircraft test so that we can basically test the capability, and then we will close that. Then the next one is the SRAM, that is the A-Data missile, Denel Dynamics. I think we are anticipating a project control board, but we have just been informed, in fact, yesterday, that the Chief of the Air Force has just been abroad, and he will most probably come with different solutions so that we can have the project control board. If we look at the serial number 10, the mobile sector control capability, that's for the picture display system. That one was deferred. The Lynx helicopters, on serial number 11, we are busy closing that project. The ejection seat modification, we are just anticipating the testing of the flying jackets, and then all systems go for acceptance, but that date also speaks to March 2024, hence it is red. The radio switching network upgrade, we are currently closing that one on project on serial number 13. Achilles is the military image interpretation computer system. We are just anticipating IG, Inspector General, Department of Defense, just to register, and then we close that project. And that is the Air Force portfolio. If we can go to the Navy portfolio, the primary challenge here is funding. The patrol capability, serial number 1, speaks to 3 IPVs and also 3 OPVs. We have only contracted 3 IPVs, but the 3 OPVs is unfunded. Therefore, we're also talking about a partial acquisition partially funded on that one. Project Hotel, there has been some challenges, and I've been briefly informed by Armscor that they are currently dealing with Project Hotel, and that is the hydrographic capability, and it is currently behind schedule, and therefore that one is also yellow. The rest of the projects of the Navy are all unfunded, and the milestone documentation has been completed as indicated. And I'll go through them quickly from serial number 3, Chair. The submarine heavyweight torpedo is unfunded. The organic core sea mine warfare capability was partially funded, and but the actual core capability has been unfunded. That partial acquisition plan speaks only to the rebreathers, which has been integrated within the fleet. Then one of the major challenges is the submarine capability, and that is the midlife upgrade on our submarines is currently totally unfunded. Then there's the maritime demolitions and ordnance disposal capability is also unfunded. The Next one is the vessels upgrade and equipment obsolescence upgrade. Speaks to the upgrade of our frigates, which is also unfunded, and then even the Navy static communication requirement is also unfunded, and that is the Navy portfolio. If we can go to the common weapons, which is a conglomerate of CMIS, the Command Management Information Systems, as well as Special Forces, as well as the Military Health Service projects. On the slide number 8, if I can go, the first one, New Generation Defense Communication Network, that's a static and mobile. We are standing by for a decision if we should cancel or we should continue or defer this project, but it is unfunded. The deployable electronic warfare system, we have completed the project study report, and it's going to the Armament Acquisition Control Board very soon. And then we've got the classified, there's a classified Special Forces capability, which I will not divulge. And then we've got command and control capability for joint task forces. We are currently closing that capability. The information security solutions for the SNF, we are currently in the process of closing that contract and re-establishing a new one. The static electronic warfare system that talks to communication intelligence, it's partially funded, and we are busy with we've completed the study report on that one. The defense about the CVR, that's a medical one. That is it was fully funded when we completed the study report, but unfortunately the funds were removed, and that one is the military health capability. The transportable and platform mounted power supply, that's generators. We've got serious matters to resolve because this project is way behind schedule, but Armscor is dealing with the supplier to find a solution on this one. Then we've got the multiple tactical vehicle, which is unfunded, and therefore we could not move forward with that one. Then there's a workboats and the ferry system, and that one is for Special Forces. It was delivered, and we are currently closing that specific one. Then we've got another project, high altitude parachute equipment. The Inspector General indicated that that project will be audited very soon, and then we can close that one. And then Project Radiate, that's the family of tactical mobile network radio systems. That's mobile and static. It's currently very much delayed, but the delays was because of the operational testing issues which we had, and the supplier had to go back to resolve the technical matters. And I think the end of February, we've completed operation test and equipment for both the mobile as well as the static portions of this capability. Chair, that is all from the capital acquisitions environment. I will now hand over, with your permission, to General Andre Barnes, Brigadier General Barnes, to take us through the technology projects, which is also contracted via Armscor, and also to reflect on the Armscor Dockyard, and then conclude the presentation. With your permission, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Who's taking us through this presentation, General?
Thank you, Chair. This is Brigadier General Barnes, representing technology development under DMD. So a hearty good evening to everybody, especially to the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, as well as the Acting Executive, service chiefs that is present, and the honourable members of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, and all members present. Good evening. So I will be taking you through the slides. This is basically on the technology development projects. And as at the bottom indicated, there is high level, the green represents high level satisfaction relating to the orders placed within the time limits. And then obviously the moderately satisfied relating to orders placed within 90 days or after 90 days. And then unsatisfactory orders relating to orders not being placed. And however, we've updated the slide in terms of the last presentation we've made to the study group. I'll be taking you through to the landward portfolio. Under the Landwood portfolio, we have 8 programs. The first one is Ubuntu. It deals with Special Forces, Defense Evaluation and Research Institutes, which is consisting of the dairy. It was approved, the project definition was approved on the 17th of November, and it was concluded with, and hence it was beyond the 90 days. Tangent Repos 1 deals with ballistic modeling, project design with multifunction capabilities, simulation of engagement of scenarios for the Army. And as you can see that the project definition was approved on the 30th of November 2022, and the order has not yet been placed. However, it is in process. The FA has been approved, and we are waiting for the finalization of the contract. Serial number 3, Tangent Repos 2, also supporting the Army in establishing of the ammunition technology. The project definition was approved on the 30th of November. However, it still hasn't been concluded yet, and the order is in process as the FA has been approved. Serial number 4, dealing with Tangent Illusion, sub-program Illusion 1, weapon systems launch response supporting the artillery is approved since the PD was approved on the 26th of January, and it was approved within the timelines. Dealing with serial number 5, template science 1, development of armor protection technology. The PD was approved on the 19th of November 2021, and it has not been concluded. And this is one of Armscor's own entities that they have not approved yet, and we are waiting for the project definition to serve at the ATAS. Serial number 6, template, critical angles. This is also under Armscor, development of a database containing performance of armor, steel against small arms threats. This PD has been approved on the 19th of November 2021, and as you can see, it has been placed just within the 90 days. Template, serial number 7, template, reflex, signature management. The PD has been approved on the 30th of November 2022. As you can see, we're already in the middle of March, and the order has not been placed yet. However, it is in process as the FA has also been approved. Serial number 8, in terms of CONIA, Landwood Defense Evaluation and Research Institute, which constitutes the dairy, has been approved on the 17th of November 2021, and it was also approved within the 90 days. We're now moving over to the support environment. This is mostly supporting the South African Military Health Services in terms of Project Romulus, sub-program Holster, deals with the Chemical and Biological Defense Evaluation and Research Institute. The PD was approved on the 17th of November, and it was approved within a relatively short term, and it's reflected as green. Serial number 10, stacked, sub-program Embrace. This deals with the Ergonomics Defense Evaluation and Research Institute, has also been placed on the 17th of November, and that has also been highly satisfied with regard to the relating of the placing the order within the in the timeline. We're now moving over to aerospace under serial number 11, DEUCE, sub-program Storm. This is the Overberg test range, and this deals with the maintenance of the test and evaluation capabilities to support the South African National Defence Force at Overberg test range, funded for all the DoD test and exercises that will continue within the test evaluation environment. The PD was submitted and approved on the 29th of September 2022, and it was submitted, it was dealt with after 90 days, hence being moderately satisfied. DEUCE, Project Prey. It's a low-cost target drone. PD was approved on the 29th of September 2022, and it was also approved after 90 days. We have Project Lobby, Ares 2. It deals with the hostile firing indicator for helicopters, specifically with regard to the incidentation that happened in the DRC. The PD was approved in 2018, and it has been fully funded. As however, the test and evaluations on these capabilities still needs to be conducted. However, the PD was approved in 2018. The Airborne Electronical Warfare Communications under Project Lobby Proxima has been approved on the 6th of April, hence within the timelines, and we are continuing with that project. Project Lobby, sub-program Pollux, Airborne Escort Jammer has also been approved on the 7th of December 2021, and is highly satisfactory at this moment in time. Serial number 17, looking at projection, tenor, the guided weapon technology, rocket motor, and warhead technology research. The PD was approved on the 15th of June 2022. However, it was not placed within time, but after 90 days, and is moderately satisfied. We're moving over to the maritime environment, serial number 18, looking at the project flag, subprogram PIBOLT, Maritime Defense and Evaluation Research Institute. It deals with the MDRI at IMT, Institute for Maritime Technology in Simonstown. The PD was approved on the 9th of December, and as you can see, it was beyond the 90 days. Project Prospective, subprogram Primrose, development of broadband underwater data communication, BUDC, into technology demonstrator and synthetic aperture sonar, software capabilities. The PD was approved on the 9th of December, and as I reflected, it was after 90 days. Maritime and serial 20 perspective deals with the 30mm remote control weapon systems. This is with regard to the development of a pedestal to deal with multiple type of 30mm that can be installed onto this platform. And this is for the naval application. The PD was approved on the 16th of October 2019. And as you can see, we are still awaiting the final sea trials on this specific technology project. With regard to serial number 21, prospective project test, this deals with the a niche capability. It deals with the tower escape safety system for submariners, and this is the first type of in the world. This PD was approved on the 9th of December 2021, fully funded, and we are waiting for the finalization of this contract. Then we move over to the electronics portfolio, which is a cross-cutting across all the programs, and most probably the largest of it. Serial number 22 deals with Project Indicate, deals with Chevron 3 subprogram, and it deals with Electronic Defense Evaluation and Research Institute, the EDRI, and this PD has been approved on the 12th of January 2022, however, beyond the 90 days. Indicate the combat network radios capability, as mentioned previously, deals with Electronic Defense Evaluation and Research Institute. This PD has also been approved on the 1st of September 2021. Project Indicate, subprogram Perseverance, deals with communication combat network radios, approved also on the 12th of January 2022. Serial number 25, Indicate Crypto, communication intelligence and communication jamming capability, or COM-IN and COM-JAM as we will call it. The PD approved on the 1st of September, however, the contract has not been concluded yet. We're still waiting for Armscor to conclude with this project. Sorry, the contract obligations. Then on serial number 26 deals with Project Indicate, the command and control technology, deals with information system security. The PD was approved on the 27th of July 2022, however, it was placed beyond the 90 days. Indicate Mr. SR, joint command and control. This deals with specifically with the multi-role surveillance radar capability. As you all know that we have challenges with our radar systems. The PD was approved on the 10th of August 2022. However, although it reflects moderately satisfactory, this order has only been placed recently, meaning 11 months lapse, meaning that this radar demonstrator should have been demonstrated by the end of this financial year. It has now moved over to March 2025. And we have received information from the Navy as well as from the Air Force that the timelines are quite extensive, as the requirement for this technology is quite critical. So we are dealing with this with the respective entities in order to see if we can move the timelines more to the left in order to ensure that we have eyes in the sky as well as coastal radar systems and surveillance. So without further ado, that is the technology projects for the directed technology development. And we will then move over to the next slide. With regard to the level of satisfaction from the South African Navy and Armscor Dockyard performance, the South African Navy is not 100% satisfied with the output of Armscor Dockyard. The South African Navy has also resourced the dockyard as far as possible with regard to the availability of funding. And then Armscor Dockyard was advised and authorized to source partnerships with the local defense industry to capacitate itself. Looking in conclusion, I'm not too sure if Admiral Morris would like to conclude with the presentation. Alternatively, I will conclude. With regard to the DoD level satisfaction of capital projects and technology projects allocated to Armscor, as described here, we have on the left-hand side column, satisfied, unsatisfactory, dissatisfied, and the total of projects. So the total projects as presented during the slides between myself and Admiral Morris, there's 44 capital projects, and there is 27 technology projects. As indicated in the satisfactory column, we would see that 37 was satisfied, giving us a total of 52%, meaning giving us a green code. Unsatisfactory is at 27%, giving us yellow, and then dissatisfied is 21%. So if you look at it, we are not totally really satisfied with the outcome in terms of technologies, looking at timelines and with regard to the processes that has been followed in order to secure these projects in order for the timelines to serve and to provide it to the services and divisions. Without further ado, sir, that is the end of the presentation. We now hand over to you, back to you, Chair, for any questions and answers. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Right, thanks. Right, colleagues, Executive, am I wrong to think that or to observe that the report, the presentation doesn't include the status of the maintenance contracts across the board, across all the services?
Thank you, Chair. What we are presenting to you is the status, and somewhere we do indicate why is a project delayed. But the maintenance contracts and how we are dealing with delays will be more in the feedback from the workshop.
Oh, no, I'm saying in your presentation, you're focusing largely on capital projects and not maintenance contracts, because those are part of the contracts that Armscor manages on your behalf.
Yes, Chair, we are focusing on the projects because that's how we understood mostly the request that we should present the project and the level of satisfaction.
No,
but we can answer any question related to.
You are right. In fact, I can see you've limited you have actually limited it to projects. We wanted the status of contracts with Armscor. Okay. We're too broad, and then you chose projects, and with projects, capital projects. It's still fine. I also omitted picking it up and coming back to you and ask for more information. I'm not going to be hard on you. We can pick it up at some other point. Mr. Murray and Mr. Mutley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Chair, I want to first start off by agreeing with you. I mean, I had the expectation that they will deal with all contracts because the presentation is presentation to the Joint Standing Committee on status of projects contracted by Armscor and the level of satisfaction. That's the first that I read. And then in the introduction, it says the special defense accounts provide for acquisition of defense equipment and strategic armaments, the maintenance of required defense capabilities. So in other words, maintenance is there linked directly to the SDA. So therefore, that is why maintenance contracts is very important. And without that, you know, we are basically still with our arms behind our legs. And then the financing of sensitive defense activities. Because that would be my first one in terms of maintenance. And the next one that we will be dealing with is special spares and the status of spares. And we have asked a question about SDA versus GDA, in other words, portfolio 01 versus portfolio 02. And we were told that part of the problem is that because spares is 02 and not 01, However, it clearly says the SDA is also for maintenance. So I cannot understand why we have left out the maintenance contracts, because those are currently, I think, some of the more critical ones where we see that we do not have platforms and capabilities. So I would have loved to see that, but let me proceed. On the SDA, as I've said, it is referred to maintenance. So I want to get a clarity as to spares for strategic prime mission equipment, whether that maintenance, if it is funded from defense or from the SDA, whether we can make out a case to National Treasury to basically motivate that funding for spares and maintenance must be from the SDA and not from GDA. That's the first one. And then secondly, I want to ask on the SDA, we have heard now for a number of years that the SDA will be phased out. And I think the Auditor General has also indicated that it is probably the last year of the SDA. Although when the report on the SDA is done, nothing has been is telling us what is happening with the SDA, whether it is proceeding, which we would prefer, or whether something else has been put in place in the meantime that will make sure that we don't have a vacuum between what we have and what we need in the future. So that's my first question on the spares and the maintenance and the future of the SDA. Then I want to ask on slide 6. Let me first make the observation that I think for any defense force, there are just too many delays or at risk or behind schedule or unfunded, unsatisfactory, risky. For any defense force, that must be a huge red flag. There are just too many of those. And if we even look at that last conclusion table, where only 52% is satisfied, unsatisfactory and dissatisfied is basically in the same corner, and that is nearly 50% of all projects, capital and technology. Now, for any defense force, that is a red flag, and we will have to SecDef you, and when you come back, we will continue asking your questions about what are you doing to mitigate these challenges. So we need to get answers on that. If I can go back to specifically slide 6, and I just wanted to get clarity and confirmation on number 8, Rooivalk, fully funded. Now, I want to know what project and contract are you talking about? We were at the NEL Aeronautics, and we know we only have got about 2 the Rooivalk serviceable of all the 11 that we've got. So what contract on the Rooivalk helicopters has been fully funded and basically concluded? What does that refer to? The same with the light utility helicopter. I mean, the Augusta has been in service for quite some time. So what contract for the Augusta is that is fully funded and is in conclusion now? The same with the maritime helicopter. The maritime, I mean, we know at one stage, and we know that there's basically one that has done test flights in the Western Cape. The other 3 is probably still not serviceable. So if maritime helicopter refers to the ones being used on the frigates, what does that refer to? Then on the specifically the patrol capabilities, where it is said it is partially funded and the schedule has been reviewed. We know that the outshore patrol vessels, the OPVs, has been put on long-term on hold. But in the past, there was an opinion of difference between Armscor, who said that the project Biro is fully funded, and the previous CFO that has left our service now has said a number of times we do not have the cash for Biro. So where do we stand with Biro, and specifically with the 3 inshore patrol vessels? That is quite important because that is basically the best capabilities that we have got. Then on the frigates, it has been said that with the project, the frigates and the rebuild of the frigates is behind schedule and it's unfunded. Now, I was under the impression that the Minister of Finance gave us money specifically for the upgrade of the vessels. And I think it's 1.8 billion over the next 2 years that we have received. And so I cannot understand why the vessel upgrade and equipment is unfunded. And because I'm under the impression we have got funds for that. And then my last question, just on the technology, there's just also just too many unsatisfactory and yellow and red that we find there. I want to ask the question on the dates of these contracts or the projects. All of them is basically 1 year and 2 year old. Do they want to tell us that there are no older projects that has been a problem or that has been concluded over the last couple of months? It's all the projects basically originating from 21, the latest, and 22. I think there's one that is older than that. Is that really the case? So what has happened before that time, or was the money available at that stage? Then on the level of satisfaction with the Armscor Dockyard, South African Navy is not 100% satisfied. That is like, something is not too hot and not too cold. So what does that really mean? What does that mean if they say they are not 100% satisfied? Where are the information that can give us something to work with, we as a committee, to say, Armscor, this is the problem that the Navy has got with the dockyard. And if it's not 100% operational and satisfied, then we have got a major problem, because if Armscor and the dockyard must do the upgrades of the frigates and the submarines, and they are not happy with them, then we've got a major problem. So what are the actual information in that regard on why and with what are they not happy? And what does this mean in reality to us in terms of our expectations and requirements for maritime capabilities? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Thabo Mutle, and Honorable Kenny Motsomai after Honorable Mutle.
All right. Thank you very much, Chair. Maybe I must start with the observation that you have made, because our expectation from previous engagement was for them to be able to bridge a gap that we have identified in one of the engagements that we had, where we requested them to give us the status, and they relegated that responsibility to Armscor, whilst we expected them to give us their perspective. Yet again, they give us a presentation of a status of those projects. The question is, then what? What must happen? Because they're only presenting the status, and the expectation was that probably I might be ahead. Maybe the feedback will be able to address in details what we requested from them than the status, which does not necessarily indicate what will happen to resolve the challenges that comes with the contracts that they have with Armscor in terms of ensuring that things are moving according to what is expected in support of services that expect these services. I'm not sure. Maybe they can tell us out of this presentation, then what? That is my question. Unless if the feedback that they are going to present will then be able to address some of these issues. For an example, if they say with the dockyard that the Navy is not satisfied, these are the issues that we wanted to pick up for them to pop them up to say these are the challenges. Insofar as the dockyard is concerned, Armscor is unable to deliver, or Armscor has got the following challenges. We are not happy in terms of the contract because of this and that and that and that not going well, as opposed to how it is being presented, because we want to deal with the gist of the challenges, not at the with the on the surface level in the manner that which we are interfacing with it. I think if there can be clarity with regard to that, one will be able to engage further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mutle. Nandipa, are you still in the meeting?
Yes, Chair.
Please check your WhatsApp, please, and then
Okay,
respond.
Chair.
Mr. Matsomai, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I don't know. I'm just confused now. We have only 3 ROIFARC. They are taking part from other one. They put on another one that it can work. And we have a problem of Navy about the submarines, and which is a genuine and a serious problem. But I ask myself, this is look like somebody want to promote a certain a company, and you don't come openly and said, let's take this one and pay him for the tenders so that they can help us. When you look to this, when we were visited at that place, when we were told about how these people fail to fix the ROIFARC and other helicopters, then you see there's a very serious problem here. I want to know from these people, they are being given a lot of money, like last year, where they got more than $1 billion. What they have done with that money? Why they are failing to service the ROIFARC? Why they are failing to service the submarine? Or they think we are relaxed? In absentia of a war, it doesn't mean that we are in a peace. There can be a war at any time. We can be attacked by criminals at any time. Why don't they make sure that they service our flights? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, colleagues. May I ask Nandipa just to flight 3 slides that will indicate what is it that we are expecting. We did not get it today. Maybe we'll get it at some other point. Please open it. Nandipa, are you opening it?
Can you see it, Chair? Not yet.
It's not open, please. I can only see your inbox. You see, the item was much broader than this. It says briefing by the DoD on contracts managed by Armscor on behalf of the Department of Defense and the level of satisfaction with these contracts, including services rendered by the Armscor Dockyard. That was the topic, the item that the presentation was supposed to address. But the presentation itself simply refers to what you call it, to projects. What is it?
Yeah, I just want to add while you're looking there, I also think that this presentation has not nearly given us what we were looking for, and it has actually not helped us in terms of our objective of this presentation. So it's actually very it's disheartening.
Please, Nandipa, are you doing it?
Check, give me a few seconds.
We'll just give you a highlight. We'll just pick up one maintenance contract that we picked up during our oversight visit that started to tell us about how deep the problem is. And because the question always has been that why are our aircraft not in the sky, vessels in the sea, and the Amari, in the out there, supporting our landwards. That has been the question, but that is largely a function of maintenance. So here, the focus was on just capital projects. Hence, Mr. Mare's question was not addressed. That's what does this tell us about the ROIFACs that are in Denel and they are, not where they ought to be, So that was essentially the question. Nandipa, are you still struggling? Okay, maybe whilst Nandipa is trying to flight the thing, Nandipa, are you still struggling? Nandipa?
Chair, I had to save it first. Now I'm going to flight it.
I thought you knew that you were supposed to start with that first. General Ramatswana, I see your hand. Maybe let me call you up first. Maybe you'll assist us. General Ramatswana?
Chairperson, good evening to you and the honorable members. I have heard what the honorable members have been saying in terms of the contracts, maintenance contracts themselves, so that the honorable members would have liked to see the presentations relating to maintenance contracts. And I want to say, Chairperson, that if we have not met your expectation in terms of the presentation that we have had just now, just to sincerely apologize to yourselves. We had enough time. We would have produced that. I think on our part, we have taken it straight to the projects. The second the presentation that's going to follow now talks to where we do an assessment in terms of everything, the contracts, as well as the areas of maintenance where there was engagement between ourselves and Armscor. But I want to believe from what I've heard from you, Chair and honorable members, it might not give you the satisfaction that you expected. So for that, we just have to apologize. But I need to say that on here now today, Chief of the Air Force is here, is in the line, and he can shed some light in terms of the contracts as they relate to the Air Force. Chief of the South African Navy is available. He is here with us, he is linked, and they can share the light, the two colleagues, in terms of the contracts in that environment, which talks to the maintenance. And once again, I just want to say that it was not our intention that we would come and not give the honorable members what they want. The presentations, we could have built it. Probably it has just been a bit of a misunderstanding on our part. So, but the Chief of the Air Force is here, Chair. Let me not waste much of the time, as well as Chief Navy. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, General Ramatswane. At least I'm happy that you understood the concern. Please put it in a presentation mode, Nandipa.
Good evening, Chair.
I'll come back to you, Vice Mayor. Okay, let me tell you what we picked up on our trip. Is this the slide, the first slide that you're starting with?
Yes, Chair.
Nandipa?
Yes, Chair.
All right. Okay, it's a status of maintenance contracts. We'll just take two contracts. It's Royfag and Oryx. Because our question always has been that our capability is collapsing. There's money, but we don't see what is this money buying us. We're not seeing any value back from the funds we are giving you. For example, let's look at the Royfag combat support helicopter. You see, the maintenance contract was from the 1st of April 2019 to 2022, and we've just extended it. The department has just extended it to 2023. And the value of this contract, we're dealing with Royfag only, because the Royfag, we have, how many Royfag? We have 11.
11, yes. And
only 2 are serviceable. Our question, why? You know, and the Oryx, we have 37 with Denel, only about 17 are serviceable. You know, and the C-130, we have 5, only 1 is serviceable. So we wanted to know, but where is the problem? Now, let me tell you where the problem is. You see, the contract value of this contract, I mean, of just that we had with Denel, is 463 million rand. Okay, for a period of 3 years. If you look at the bars, so this money, just before you go to the bars, was for the fixed cost elements and on-demand services. We asked what constitute fixed cost? What is fixed cost? And we were told is payment of salaries, basically maintaining Denel. Denel is a strategic asset. We need it. We wouldn't want to see it going down. But our interest is what are we getting from the investment we are making? So when all the money, this 463 million rand was going to Denel, you look at the bar at the bottom, how much the fixed cost we paid in 2019, 2020. It was 97 million rand in 2019, 2020. And in 2021, it was 28 million rand. In 21-22, it's 123 million rand. And in 22-23, it's 150 million rand. That was fixed cost. Now, for on-demand services, we only had money for it. It was in 2019, 2020, that 90 million rand. Now, so it means that if you don't have money for on-demand services, it means that you can't have spares. We asked if they were to give them money today, will they be able to fix these aircraft? They said no, they'll not be in a position to do it immediately because of this 12 to 36 months lead time. You know, so the money that the Air Force was allocating, giving it out to Armscor, and this is what it was able to achieve. So then the capability we were actually maintaining was for Denel to be able to do a troubleshooting. Let's say we have a problem with our aircraft, to go there, fix it. But the problem is when the aircraft needs space. So it means that you're not going to have the new spares because you don't have the money, the allocation for on-demand services. What they would then do is to go and cannibalize, go to one that is there, that will give them the spares that they need to fix the one that is in service, and then do that. So essentially, you have most of our aircraft very soon going to descend to a shell or shells because we don't have the on-demand services allocation. If there's a problem, we go to those that are in repairs, get more spares to service those, to actually repair those that are in service. So this is the situation that we have. So that there was no allocation for on-demand services in 2020, 2021, 21, 22, and 22, 23. It means that we could not buy new spares. The only thing they could do is to harvest. But the harvest has a limit as well. Let's go to the second contract. The next slide. Okay, this is the next slide, is Oryx. Again, for 2019 to 2022, which has been extended to 2023, the contract value was 768 million rand. That is SAA funding, money that came from CAF. And then there is money from Chief Joint, is 300 million rand. Okay? But mostly the money from CAF went for fixed cost, but from money from JOBS, part of it was for fixed cost, whilst part of it was for on-demand, service. Again, it's then start to tell you why most of our Oryx that are standing idly and in repair, with Denel, are not going to be brought back, to active service because there are no spares available. If there's, for now, they are actually attending to those that are in service, just to keep them in the air, because they cannot buy new spares simply because there's no money available that is actually allocated to them. So this is the problem that starts to answer all the questions we've been having as a portfolio committee. Where is the problem? Now we can tell you where the problem is. You know, the budget we set aside for CAF, instead of going directly to buying spares and all that, the majority of it, a significant portion of it, goes to Denel for fixed cost. The question we ask, but why are we the only department that is responsible to maintain Denel? Because there is Department of Public Enterprises. The acting HOD of Public Enterprises was there, and he said, well, look, it's an arrangement between Armscor and Denel. Is the model that they adopted between the two of them, you know. And it's true. The Defense Force needs Denel, you know, but I thought DPE also has a responsibility to ensure that Denel is kept afloat. Well, maybe with the latest funding that they've made available, it will go somewhere. But the figures that we have just put out, they were there mainly to sustain Dinel. It's the capability we need. We don't want to lose it. I thought I should just make this presentation. It's not a presentation. It's a feedback from what we got, which is not being addressed. Yes, the spares will address it indirectly, but it's the presentation that we thought it would be incorporated as part of the presentation that you've just given. Colleagues, I'm not too sure if I was able to summarize the issues as we pick them up.
Brilliant, Chair, brilliant.
All right, now.
Chair.
Yes, Chabo.
Chair, you represented us very well, but maybe in addition, we said to them, part of the things that we must look at is the question of OEMs. And for how long, we said to them they must give us a proposal how they are going to deal with that issue in terms of disrupting those cartels, for a lack of a better word, or monopolies in terms of those OEMs, because those are some of the things that are creating a problem in terms of the space contracts, because they are compelled to go to these OEMs, original manufacturers, and at times because our equipments are old, they are no longer manufacturing them. They need to make space and time available to manufacture as per the order. And it's something that we have requested them to go and look at, and this presentation is expected to speak to those things. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable colleagues. You can see, SecDef, that we've just spoken to the money we've allocated for the for the Oryx and the Royal Flag. We're not even mentioning the C-130. We're not even mentioning the Airbus. We're told that the Airbus contract is yet to be renewed. So all of that speaks to the challenges that is being faced largely by the Air Force. We'll come to the Navy. We have not given us sufficient time to dive deep into the challenges that are facing the Navy, right? General Ramazwana, you let me just go back to the SecDef, hear how she would. Maybe before I go to SecDef, let me take the Deputy Minister, or the Deputy Minister would want to hear first what the SecDef and maybe the Chief are going to say. Either the Chief.
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. Let me wait for that. Yes.
Okay, sure. Let me just get acting SecDef.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. From my side, I can just say it looks like we narrowly understood the requirement to only mean the capital acquisitions. And from where we stand right now, maybe some of the questions that members are raising now about space will be answered in the presentation that will be a feedback from the work session. But if that does not suffice, Chair, we are prepared to come back with the now having understanding myself where I stand of what is required. We can then, if the second presentation does not meet the requirements or answer all the questions, then we are prepared to come back, Chair. All I can say now is to apologize, because it means we misunderstood the requirement for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Were you aware of this model, acting SecDef?
The model that is used by
the team we've just presented now, that is reflected on the slide.
Well, I was aware of the presentation because I reviewed the presentation, Chair. But the model that is used by Armscor that we are supposed to, it looks like it's us who are maintaining Dinel. at the cost of money for on-demand maintenance. No.
Thank you. Right. I don't know, maybe we can ask the chief to talk to us, unless he wants to delegate it. The chief of the Defence Force.
Chair, I wasn't aware of the chief of the Defence Force being in the meeting. Now that there is silence, I'm not sure whether he's in the meeting. I know that the chief of staff is.
Yes, the chief of staff did indicated that the chief was in the meeting. The chief of staff.
Person, sorry, it is the chief of the Air Force is available. And the chief of the Navy is available. So I was saying that they can also shed some light in terms of the contracts as they relate to the Air Force. And the chief of the Navy will be able to take us through in terms of the issues that were raised by honorable members as they relate to the Navy. So the two colleagues are here and are ready to talk, Chairperson, if you are willing to give them an opportunity. We can start with the Chief of the Air Force.
Thank you very much. Chief Air Force.
General Mbambo, I think you might have to unmute.
I'm not sure, am I audible?
You are now.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and Deputy Minister and members of the committee in attendance. Thank you for the opportunity. Honorable Chair, after listening to the description that you have described in terms of the actual challenge faced by the Air Force in terms of the contracts, how they are structured in terms of the fixed and on-demand, and the resultant problems that accrue from that kind of contracts over time. I was listening very carefully, and the only word that was pumping in my heart was amen. Really, because this is exactly the heart of the problem in terms of how the money has been flowing from us to Denel via Armscor, with a net results that we are basically maintaining Denel in terms of personnel cost. And what we have described, Honorable Chair, is exactly the scenario where we are in, whereby because of this kind of contracts and how they are actually structured, we do not have any aircrafts in the air. And we cannot, with the status of these contracts, be in a position to have aircrafts in the air, be it Royal, be it Oryxes or C-130. And again, if this situation, just in conclusion, is not turned around, we are slowly but surely approaching a situation whereby there will be no more aircrafts to cannibalize from. And that will be a scenario where the Air Force will ground into a standstill. So that is basically where we are. So I think, if I may, that when we are going to present maybe again in full details this situation, it will be prudent that Denel and Armscor should be in attendance so that everybody will be in one room so that when questions are asked, that environment that is supposed to respond should be in a position to respond. I submit, Honorable Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The CAF Chief of the Air Force, I agree with you. This to me will spell disaster for the Air Force. Chief Navy.
Good evening, Honorable Chairperson, Mr. Klaver, Deputy Minister of Defense, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Defense and my fellow colleagues. Thanks for the opportunity. I don't know where to start, but maybe let me start maybe a way back to 2000 in terms of why we find ourselves here with the challenge that we are faced with today of unavailability of spare parts for the maintenance and repair of the South African Navy frigates and submarines. Chair, you'll recall during the strategic defense acquisition, the funding allocation towards the acquisition of our platforms was that 80% of the funding that were given by government was for the acquisition costs, and 20% of that funding was for the through life support. With that 20% that were given at the time, we assessed as the project teams, both Project Citron as well as Project Wheels, that the funding that were given by government was not adequate for us to be able to support these platforms after their delivery for the remaining 30 years of their lifespan. To an extent, through Project Wheels, the spare parts that we needed could not even sustain us for the first 5 years after the delivery of the submarines. And the first refit was due 7 years after the first submarine was delivered. And at that time, we did not have the required spare parts for us to be able to execute that refit because of the inadequate funding that was provided to us during the acquisition phase. To an extent, at the time, we resolved that the then Chief of the Navy, Admiral Mudimo, I requested him that to meet with his principal and request for an extra rand, for an extra R1, so that you can be able to bridge the gap that we actually identified then during the project time, so that we can be able to get all the required spare parts that we needed for us to be able to support these submarines and frigates for the remaining 25-30 years of their lifespan. But that was never to be. That is why today we find ourselves in the situation where we are in, that the underfunding of the SA Navy in terms of the true life support was not balanced. Instead of giving us 20% of the acquisition cost as well as and then 80% of the true life support that we needed at the time was not to be. So that is why we find ourselves now here. It is not because of a lack of will that you are unable to maintain our frigate and submarines. It is because of the funding model that we find ourselves in, that the resources that we require associated with the long lead times that is actually needed by the manufacturers of these spare parts. Because a submarine spare parts is unlike going to a spaza shop and go and get a loaf of bread and then you get it readily available. It has to go through a rigorous design, manufacturing, qualification, setting to work before you can even get that spare part. That is actually was proven during the acquisition phase where we got some of the parts that we needed. Whilst the contract was signed in 99, but we're able to fit those components on both those submarines 4 years later. So that we need to take it into consideration. Now we are where we are because there's spare parts that we require for us to be able. We plan the maintenance and repair evolution way back. But in terms of the challenge that we have, because we don't have the required spare parts in our depots, that is what is causing all the maintenance and repair projects to get delayed, because we conduct maintenance and repair through procurement, which procurement, as well as in line with the spares availability in the market, do not speak to each other, hence these delays. Coming to what Mr. Murray was actually saying, what happened to the 1.4 billion rand that National Treasury gave us? That 1.4 billion rand, yes, National Treasury announced it during the budget allocation, but only 500 million rand of that was made available only in this financial year. The balance is to be made available in the 2 outer years. But what have we done as a South African Navy to see to that? No, we stick to what National Treasury has actually directed us to do, so that we're able to meet our operational requirements. Soon, National Treasury made that announcement. The dockyard is our level 3 maintenance and repair capability, went through an RFI and an RFI process in October, in December. As in any tendering process, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The first round that they went through, they didn't get any bid. So they are now going back again on the RFB so that they can actually invite industry once again, so that in terms of their timeline, by June this year. Hello?
Yes, you may go ahead. There was some disruption. You may go ahead, General Admiral.
Yeah, so we expect from what Armscor Dockyard is telling us that by June this year, pertaining to the submarines as well as frigates, they will have actually managed to source a service provider who could actually assist us in terms of refitting our submarines. And then that will have its own timelines subject, because now what is available is that there is a tentative statement of work, but once the contractors get on board and start opening up system, depending on the scope creep that might happen, then the work might end up moving to the right. But the plan is there to see that the funding that we've been given by National Treasury, we spend it in accordance with the directive that National Treasury has actually given us. We are not intending to use that money on anything. It's going to be used for the maintenance and repair of our frigates as well as submarines. Going to the issue that was raised by Mr. Mutsamai, that we're taking parts to keep from one profile or one ship to keep another ship at sea. Mr. Mutsamai, with the crisis that we find ourselves in now, due to unavailability of spare parts in our depots, cannibalization is a standard maintenance and repair practice in engineering. We've done this previously in the Navy with SAS Mendi during 2010, 2009, somewhere there, where we didn't have spare parts to keep our other frigates at sea. we ended up having to strip some of the parts from SAS Mendi, but we kept a record of what we took out of SAS Mendi, with the plan that once we have the required funding, then we're going to acquire or procure those spares. We did exactly that. Mendi was out of circulation for a while because of what we did. We didn't have the required spare parts in our depots, and we had to use her as a hot spare to take parts from here. But today, because of the plan that we put in place at the time as the South African Navy, we're able to replace all those components that we took on board SAS Mendi. And today, Mendi is one of the platforms that is operationally available for the South African Navy. And it was in Richards Bay during the Armed Forces Week because of that maintenance and repair philosophy that we actually following in the Navy. Stripping another platform to keep another one. It's not a crime at all in engineering practices. As I've said, with regard to the maintenance and repair of the submarines, yes, Armscor Dockyard has got a plan. They went through the first round of sourcing a service provider that can actually assist them to be able to repair the frigates as well as submarines, but they were not successful. They are now going back out again now in April, with the plan that by June, they will actually be having a service provider that will actually assist them to be able to provide us the service that we require. Historically, when Armscor Dockyard was given to Armscor in 2009, when the transfer agreement was actually signed between the Navy and Armscor, it was that Armscor Dockyard will provide us that strategic repair and maintenance capability. But over time, people resigned within Dockyard. And as the Navy, we maintained our obligation in accordance with the spirit of the transfer agreement by making sure that we transfer money to the Dockyard so that it can capacitate itself to be able to provide us that level 3 strategic repair maintenance capability. Yes, certain projects ended up not being done on time due to the lack of capacity within the Dockyard. That actually also is influenced, especially for the submarines. When we signed the acquisition project for the submarines, one of the deliverables by the OEM was to deliver the statement of work for us to be able to execute the refits on ourselves. But what did the OEM did? The OEM did not give us that statement of work for us to be able to be independent of them. They kept that information from them. And when we needed to actually execute that refit, the first refit in 2013, 2014, we didn't have that information. And we ended up having to contract that OEM. But now we have in defense industry in South Africa that we have trust that it will be able to provide us the support that we need to be able to execute those refits for both frigates and submarine. And for the frigates, we've tested that already in 2013, where SAS Amatola was locally refitted using resources, the local industry. And to this date, Amatola never experienced any challenges that it ended up sinking at sea because we did not use the OEM. Through the support that we got in terms of utilizing the defense industry, Amatola is still sailing. Mantatis has just returned back to sea through utilizing also the Dockyard as well as the local industry. So we have confidence that soon and very soon, the Dockyard, through partnership with defense, with local defense industry, we are going to overcome the challenges that we have with the maintenance and repair of our platforms. We are thankful to this committee as well as National Treasury for providing us with the funding that we require so that we can be able to make sure that we bring our frigates and submarines back to sea. We've given Dockyard an amount of plus minus over the years, 318 million rand to capacitate itself as well as buy spares. Some of this money is the money that is now to date not yet been spent, but it is scheduled to be used towards the repair and the refit of SAS mandates. From where I'm seated, I'm comfortable as Chief of the Navy that whatever challenges that the Dockyard is going through the assistance with the local defense industry and the funding that National Treasury has actually provided to us, we are going to overcome this challenge that we have and be able to take the Navy back to sea where it belongs. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chief Navy, for that presentation. As I said earlier on, that we have not scrutinized your maintenance and repairs contracts and the model you are using to determine whether the Navy does get value for money. For now, we can tell you that for the money we have allocated, to the Air Force for maintenance and repairs, we're not getting the rand value. In other words, value for money. I think we've stated it here in this meeting. And I don't know, maybe General Ramazan would want to make a concluding remark and then ask the DM to make a comment as well. But very soon we'll move to the presentation on spares. So the two presentations are two sides of the same coin. That unless there's money for on-demand services, the presentation that you will be giving us will come to naught. Please just mark that.
Exactly. That's the bottom line.
The presentation that we'll be making now, all right, will become an empty promise unless there is money for on-demand services. Because, I want Jan to leave it at that. General Mazwana, you've heard us, the DM has heard us, and maybe we should just, if you could just be brief on this, because very soon we'll move to the presentation that links back to this one. General Mazwana?
Chairperson, you have said it all really. I am not going to waste the time. We thank you for your guidance, and once again our apologies that we have not met your expectations, but we have the information and we are ready to meet your expectations, Chair. And for that we just want to say sorry about that and we apologize. But then from what you have said, Chair, you are spot on. That is our expectations. You're right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, General. DM, over to you. Maybe he has just stepped out. All right, so we'll still open up a space for him to make comments. We can then move to the third presentation on space. Acting Secretary, who's going to take us through?
Thank you very much again, Chair. Mr. Livilo, the acting Chief Defense Material, will take us through. I will not make an introduction on this one because the chair in his introduction did give context of why we are presenting, why we had to have a workshop. So I'll give it to Mr. Livilo to provide the feedback to the workshop. I hope it will answer some of the questions asked by the members of the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Acting Chief Defense Material Livilo.
Thank you, Chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee. Thank you, SecDef. Thank you, members of the Joint Standing Committee, our colleagues from the SNDF and the DOD. I would request Admiral Morris to reflect the presentation, Admiral Morris.
Chair, General Barnes, I'm trying to connect, but I'm not getting, only the host can share in the meeting. I'm waiting for authority to link up to share the presentation. Thank you.
Yes, you have been assigned the hosting, right?
Chair, just give me a moment. I'm just trying to connect.
We'll do that.
Chair, can you see the presentation?
Yes. Oh, it's a PDF.
Unfortunately, that is how we have to do it. So that, I'm trying to upload the presentation, but it's giving me in PDF form. My laptop has died, so I'm working from the phone. So it's went over to PDF. Can we proceed with the PDF, Mr. Labello?
Okay. Is it possible to expand it? Is it possible to, I don't know what to call this.
Chairperson, can Nandipa not try to load it from her side? Then we're going to have a full page, full screen.
There we go. That's a much better option. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray.
It's just that Nandipa is alone there. She does not have someone to assist.
Chair, I can try and because Gunta has joined the meeting, so she will assist.
Okay, let's do that.
If you can stop screen sharing, Mr. Morris.
Okay, will do. There we go.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Over to you, Mr. Labello.
Thank you. This presentation is about the feedback on the Joint Standing Committee on Defense on the outcomes of the DOD workshop with Armscor on spares and maintenance. And this comes as a result of our last meeting with the committee where they said we must go and find ourselves between Armscor and the DOD. Earlier on, Armscor presented initiatives to improve the spares availability for the SNDF prime mission equipment to the Joint Standing Committee. That was around March 2023. It was observed that the above presentation was not aligned with the current realities of the prime mission equipment serviceability. And the Joint Steering Committee advised that Armscor and the DoD had to conduct the workshop, which was initially planned to find alignment between both the DoD and Armscor. Can I have a next slide, please? The aim of this presentation is to provide feedback to the Joint Steering Committee on Defense regarding the outcome of the Armscor DoD workshop addressing the spares and maintenance. The scope is as presented: introduction, aim of the presentation, DoD Armscor workshop action plan. That will be reflected. Yes, we spent 3 days between the DoD and Armscor on a workshop where we had to address all the concerns of how Armscor is assessed. I'm not sure how much we'll be able to address the questions that were asked earlier by the committee, but we moved from the premises that the questions that were presented earlier, the first ones only dealt with the projects and technology, and this one, Armscor presented the status only. It was not dealing with Armscor's, or DoD's satisfaction on Armscor's contribution to make sure that the serviceability of prime mission equipment is up to date. So we identified areas of concern, agreed resolution, and responsible parties to address, and also gave timelines. The first one was on the Armscor DoD service level agreement. The SLA performance measure it was found that it's based on the averages, and it did not address individual concerns that were raised by different services and divisions, including DMD. And we agreed that we have to add acquisition performance measures to the SLA, not design on averages. It is there, but it should not be designed on averages, but on deliverables. The same applied to technology as well. And then the action was for DMD and Armscor to address, and we gave ourselves time until December. This may lead to a review of the SLA as we saw it, so that Armscor is assessed on the actual mandate that they are performing. The current assessment on the SLA is, as it is on averages, it allows Armscor to assess themselves and their assessment to be the prime lead in assessment and not the DoD part. So now we have agreed that DoD will also be part of the assessment. Can we get the next slide? Yes, we identified another area of concern in contracting timelines, which is as a result of protracted timelines for placing orders, as they call it in Armscor, but this talks to contracts for repairs, spares and maintenance and repairs. And it was decided that we adopt a D-Day system for placing contracts until the final delivery and payment of invoices for spares and maintenance and repairs, and to monitor progress through what we have as our bilaterals between Armscor and DoD. DoD represented by the specific service. In case of the Navy, it will be Armscor, DMD, and the Navy, or Armscor, DMD, and the Air Force, or even with the Army as well. So Armscor to come up with a process to address these timelines. Here we found that in some cases, Armscor will spend longer time with administrative issues, dealing with more office administration before they go out on on tender and test the market. So we agreed that they must reduce the internal process time so that they can give more time to the industry to respond. And if there's any consultations between the services and Armscor, it has to be done as early as possible, even before the funds are available. But the D-Day will only count from the day that there is funded requirements to Armscor. And on contract management, we also found a concern that we felt that there was no urgency to resolve disputes with contractors affecting the operational availability. And it was agreed that we must include punitive penalties or termination clauses, some of which are there in the general contract conditions for National Treasury and also in the Armscor general conditions of contract. But it must be coupled with timelines in the event of non-performance by suppliers in contracts and implement both procedural and substantial measures in accordance with the contract. We also then that Armscor and DMD must take responsibility for this. This will be done on a continuous basis. We found that we are faced with some challenges when dealing with special forces and joint operations requirement that require compliance to some of the regulations that include that are included in the Triple PFA and also in the BEE. While we recognize that we must follow that, some of the requirements are for equipment that is not easily available in country, and it's in support of the current equipment which come from source suppliers, some of which come from outside the country. And we would, together with Armscor, engage National Treasury and find ways to address this unique equipment for our security services. Next slide, please. And with regards to requirement processing, it was felt that the services and divisions sometimes bring requirements too late to Armscor, making Armscor to feel like they are the ones who are not up to speed with the support to the services. And then we then resolve that the end users must submit their requirements at the beginning of the financial year or even pre-committed requirements. This is where we said that from January, from the beginning of the calendar year, we should form IPTs between Armscor, DMD, and the services and talk to common requirements that are forthcoming so that they can be addressed way before the funds is available. And we'll wait until the financial year starts. When the financial year starts, we start having funding around the second or third week of April, and then it will just be plug and play, and then we know what we want, we know what the industries can supply, and then we work on the D-Day that we have earlier stated. And this is the responsibility that was given to services and divisions to be responsive in getting the requirements to the Armscor process as early as possible. This must be done with immediate effect. We identified delayed submissions of execution plans and dates from Armscor. This talks to the SLA states that when Armscor receives requirements from the DoD, they should within 14 days respond by giving us a plan from the day that they receive the requirements, when they're going to go out on tender, when they're going to evaluate, when it's going to serve in the committee depending on the threshold, and when they are going to place a government order. And then they are evaluated based on that. But Armscor sometimes does not give us this within the period that is set in the SLA, which is within 14 days. So if you have that within 40 days, we are able to share as DMD with the services. They could then know what is upcoming, and then they will then monitor Armscor according to that plan that is out there. And we also found that sometimes this plan is not followed as Armscor has proposed, because it's an Armscor plan on how to support our requirements, but sometimes they deviate and there's no recourse for that deviations as well. So we then decided that we'll have to implement corrective action and provide continuous feedback to the end user so they know when will their requirements be addressed. This action was then given to Armscor and the DMD, and the timelines are immediate on this one. Can I have a next slide, please? Yes, continuing again with the same requirement processing. We have committed rollovers that are generated, and these committed rollovers, we said they are managed by services and divisions, and consequence management, where applicable, has to be enforced. Armscor and DMD must make sure that these committed rollovers are managed properly, and by the end of September, we should come up with a clear plan that there should not be any remaining forced rollovers by that time of the calendar year, because beyond that, the money may not be able to be spent by the services. We identified poor performance of the defense industry as another concern. On the resolution, we said that the Armscor must enforce the already included penalties and termination clauses to the industry in their contracts. We know they are there, but we feel that they are not being enforced, so we must enforce that. Although these penalties do not bring those spares to the services. There may be a penalty, and we still don't have equipment. So this, we say we must try to get alternative suppliers much earlier. It means we must implement some market research to know how the industry will respond way advanced before we wait for companies to fail and then there's poor performance on their side. And Armscor was tasked to then investigate and come up with a process on this on a continuous basis. And on requirement delivery, distribution and processing records management as a concern, area of concern, we then agreed that we have to find an electronic tracking system that will be visible to DOD meaning DMD, and services at all times. The chiefs of services should be able to know where are challenges in their contracts. When are they going to get their spares or maintenance capabilities looked after by the industries way in advance? So as the execution plan is happening, you should be able electronically to see what is happening at all times. Hence, we saw it must be visible to all stakeholders within the DoD and also within Armscor. And here we said we must work together between Armscor, DMD, and the service and divisions, because electronically we have different systems. The systems in Armscor may not be directly linked to the systems in the DoD, but we'll have to find a medium to use a process or a system that will be usable to, say, the Chief of the Air Force, as well as Chief of the Navy or Army and Armscor as well. Next slide, please. We identified time delays. There was concern that sometimes the requirements coming from the Defense Material Division are submitted later, and it was resolved that we have to put a cap on that, and it's also in the SLA that within 72 hours since the requirements are received, they must be then processed to Armscor. But bearing in mind that some of the requirements have got to be checked for thoroughness by DMD, and then we can only let Armscor count on the requirements that are sent to them as complete if they are fully funded. If they're not funded, then the count cannot start, because also Treasury will not allow Armscor to test the market on requirements that are not funded. But DMD takes this responsibility, and this action is immediate. And on the long lead items for CJ Ops and Special Forces operational requirements, we then decided to work on investigating an alternative process. There is process with National Treasury where we can use to acquire rare and special equipment that is not easily available, almost through an approved waiver from National Treasury to do this. Armscor will engage National Treasury with the help of the DoD to request their assistance into addressing this urgent operational requirements for CJ Ops and Special Forces. Next slide, please. Areas of concern was also on the early warning with little or no chance of alternative action. The early warning in terms of the late delivery of equipment, especially the GDA commodities and spares, as earlier was mentioned by Mr. Murray, that these spares must be delivered in time for them to be paid before the financial year ends. And if we execute that D-Day system, we should be able to, by September, if possible, receive that. But bearing in mind that there are times where there is another allocation later in the year from National Treasury, we'll have to find ways to address that one. But as for the funds that are coming in April, we should be able to buy all the spares in time and deliver before the end of the financial year for the GDA. And all efforts should be made to contribute to expedite the delivery of spares and maintenance and requirement. Supply capability should be verified on time prior to placement of orders. This is because sometimes Armscor would contract some companies that fail to deliver. So if we do this verification of suppliers before the order is delivered, then we should be able to know if this company has got full capability to deliver or not able to deliver. The termination clauses is what we mentioned earlier, and Armscor to expedite the conclusion of new orders on condition that the URS are received on time from the service and divisions. Armscor and DMT has to come up with a process, and these requirements should be by at least latest September annually be finalized, and then we wait for delivery from September until December, and then the first 3 months of the new year would be just processing, delivery, and payment. The next slide, please. We had an area of concern on the reliance on the OEM and suppliers, and we identified a full compliance, full reliance on OEMs as a concern, and which also may lead to the OEM taking advantage of they being the only ones that can do whatever that you want to do. So we understand that the OEMs, if you look at them, if you compare them with aftermarket companies, the OEM equipment may last longer. They may increase operational life of equipment, but we have to do enough research to say alternative supplies of equipment can also do the same. Hence, we say we must reinvestigate if there's any re-engineering that can be done to address dependence on OEMs who may not be willing to share the data packs of what was provided by them, and that will also help to manage obsolescence of equipment or space. And the responsible parties would be also Armscor, GMD, service and divisions, and this will be managed on a continuous basis. The same would be on appointed of identification that was made by the team is that we found that sometimes Armscor would appoint the same supplier multiple times, even if they have a history of that supplier not performing as they promised they would do. And we resolved that there must be keep track of non-performing companies, maybe almost derive a performance data of companies. So that can be part of the bid evaluation process. So because we don't want to exclude a company that compliance. The compliance process must also include the fact that their past performance is beyond questionable nature. And then where possible, if they have to continue not performing, then we should be ready to pursue litigation procedures, because some will challenge us that have been excluded unfairly. So we must know our story on this matter as well. Next slide, please. The Armscor position on the way forward, they felt that procurement of spares should be done proactively rather than reactively. Requirements for spares to be provided early in the financial year. We say in the calendar year, but the financial year is the funded ones that will be provided at the time. And preferably, as we say, before the financial year starts. That's what we're talking about when you say during the calendar. So once we know what spares we would require, we should start this integrated project team with Armscor to plan for funding when it comes. And the phasing of operating funds should be provided to coincide with the lead times of long lead spares to allow payment of spares in future financial years if required. Procurement of spares of equipment for which Denel is the OEM cannot provide these spares to be contracted to alternative suppliers in the market. So it means we request Armscor to investigate which are the alternative probable suppliers. But these companies, we know that they may not have the data pack of the original equipment. So we must find a way to acquire these data packs and share them with the industry, but bearing in mind that we must protect also the intellectual property of Denel on this equipment. So there has to be a legal process that has to be made, so we don't just easily give away the intellectual property of a state-owned OEM. And we also resolved that, or Armscor then provided guidance on placing umbrella agreement, which should be negotiated with OEMs in accordance with the umbrella approval Armscor Board of Directors to facilitate quicker turnaround times of spares procurement, similar to umbrella agreement for ammunition. The key is in-time, on-time availability of critical spares, is proactive identification of spares, requirements, and early start of associated procurement processes. Umbrella agreements with local and foreign spares providers to be concluded based on the predicted future requirements and rates of requirement. We also said that the SANDF and the DoD would provide Armscor with the probable multi-year funded requirements for spares. We have a next slide, please. In conclusion, the DoD and Armscor had reached synergy and will implement the outcome to improve serviceability of spares and maintenance and repair contract that will ultimately lead to the improvement of the force readiness levels of the SANDF. And the question remains if Armscor is capacitated to comply to its mandate, and furthermore, if the industry is in position to support the sustainment of the SANDF. This was my last slide, but I also wanted to comment on the questions that were raised earlier by the Joint Steering Committee on how the DoD responded on to the questions on responding on how satisfied is the DoD on Armscor on their service. And I'm trying to say we must distinguish between the DoD's satisfaction of Armscor's work versus the availability of funding to address spares for maintenance and repairs and support of the SANDF. So if there's that distinction, And my happiness is that we were able to find each other with Armscor, and we will monthly, before even quarterly reports from Armscor, be able to assess Armscor's performance. And we are happy, and they're happy with the process that we've agreed upon. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. We'll take questions.
Chief Defense Material, for your presentation. It's clear and straightforward. I will make my comments at the end. Honorable Mare.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it's a very constructive and a proactive presentation, and clearly they have listened to what we have said and has clearly put some things on paper. My only comment is obviously, there must be actions that follow these words and implementation, and then report back to us. And my requirement would be, at least on a quarterly basis, to see how are they progressing on this way, and then dealing specifically with the concerns that we have identified, the Navy, the Air Force, those strategic platforms, and also landward, as you've rightfully said, Chair, so that we know, okay, this is how we have progressed with the frigates, or with the Oryx, or with the Rooivalk, or with the C-130, or whatever it might be, or the submarines, so that we know that we can put this together and say, okay, this is working, because eventually the question will be, so what? Look at the bottom line, look at the end result. Does it work? Does it deliver? Irrespective of how many times they meet and how many excuses they produce, we want to know whether we can have the vessels on the water and the aircraft in the air, and those prime mission equipment that must work. So those will be my questions. And then specifically, I recall that we have had this problem with GDA versus SDA. And I know that I've not had the confirmation of what will happen with SDA and what will be in the place of SDA. We know that the PFMA provides for SDA that can have rollovers and GDA not. Somehow, Chair, and I don't know whether this has been tested with National Treasury, we will have to look at also spares and categories of spares. There are certain spares that I believe that our industry can produce, as has been pointed out, but there are certain spares that we have got no option but to go to the OEM. For instance, turbines, engines, sometimes gearbox.
I think that is in the part of their plan. I thought they've made
yeah, but I just need to get us at a place where we can go to National Treasury and say, there are certain things that we have to go to the OEM. So can we somehow design a system that certain spares for maintenance can be regarded or classified as SDA, in other words, to roll over, which will be easier for them to plan on a multi-year and given a multi-year commitment, given that they can roll over the funds. So I am happy, and if we can get that regular report back, and then just my concern is that SDA, GDA, how are we going to resolve that problem? Because it's going to caught up with us again some other time, and we have to negotiate with the National Treasury, in our report at least, to say how can we address that specific problem. Not spares in general, but spares for specific purposes that we cannot do in any other way, but have 18 or 24 months delay period with OEMs, for instance, the engine manufacturers, or from Lockheed Martin, or from Saab in Sweden for the Gripens, etc. So, but I think it's a very proactive presentation. Now we must just put, the proof is in the eating of the pudding. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other hand? No, I'm not convinced that we need Treasury at this stage, Mr. Mare. not until there's demonstrable evidence that the department and Armscor are really implementing these reforms. I must say that these reforms are a welcomed development. They are, in fact, they're actually implicating the department that this has been we've been through a self-inflicted pain, basically. If these reforms were introduced long time ago, would be far as this department. In actual fact, would even be having spares in our stores. Right now, there are no spares in our stores. And because of the approach that the department stroke Armscor have been following for all these years. That today, we are sitting on in fact, we are sitting on a time bomb, a ticking time bomb. So that is much appreciated. We welcome this development, and I agree that there should be quarterly reporting on the implementation of these reforms, because we believe that they would take us somewhere. And there again, I agree with you that the taste of the pudding is in the eating. And but there again, it doesn't address the challenge that we have actually identified, the availability of funding, which is tied with the model that is for example, Armscor and Dinel is using. I'm not quite certain whether it's the same model that Armscor uses with other contracting agencies or entities. So we want to leave it at that for now, and say we give you time to implement it and check if it does deliver the result. What we're interested is the outcomes, not the inputs. The inputs are known. There's money allocated. Sometimes the output, even the outputs, it may not address the issues that we are talking about, but the outcomes, we want to see our aircraft gracing the skies, our submarines in the sea, and our landward forces having protective vehicles so that they can do their job out there. The money is available. Is the manner in which we have been spending the money. I think that has been demonstrated in this meeting. I would want to leave it at that for now, and then invite DM, unless there is some concluding remarks that the SecDef or the Chief of Staff they may want to make on this one.
I completely align myself to the comments of the Honourables Mare and the Chair, in that now that we have a plan, we need to monitor it, and obviously the taste is in the pudding, so we are going to monitor the plan, and we will come back as and when the committee requires to report back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Acting SecDef. General Ramatswane, anything before I hand over to the DM?
Chairperson, my apologies. I was logged out completely. I just came in now, so I have missed even the questions. So forgive me not to comment any further. I will leave it at that with your permission, Chair.
Thank you so much, General. DM, your concluding remarks on these two items.
Chair and honorable members, thank you very much for the engagement we have had this evening. And let me also thank the department officials and officers who have shared information with the Joint Standing Committee as far as the state of affairs is regarding the maintenance of our war systems and the business thereof. I could not, honorable members and colleagues, as we were going through the engagement, I appreciate the point that there are legacy issues as far as the way the value chain of support by industry to the Defence Force functions. There is clear evidence that some of the practices that are there, for instance, between Armscor and Denel, are a function of what was there before. You know, Denel was established in 1992 when the manufacturing divisions of Armscor were cut loose from Armscor to be on their own. And we established the state-owned defense group, Denel. So in the detail with which the Joint Standing Committee engaged with their findings of what is the problem between Denel and Armscor, you can see that there are seeds of practices that are informed by the fact that the two entities actually belonged together. In that we have money released by Armscor to Denel that ends up, from the way I see things, keeping Denel buoyed, but not assisting Armscor with what Armscor wants from Denel, which is owed to the Department of Defense. Something which raises questions about the business model of Denel, how they deal with money that are paid out to them for services and goods. Their business model seems to be, in relation to how they treat Armscor, seem to be of a spoiled baby, because things being equal, there's no enterprise that can treat its clients casually the way Denel deals with Armscor now and again. But that is a matter that should be revisited again when we are discussing the challenges of Denel in the process of bringing back Denel under the Armscor stable. The other point, of course, that is evident, I think, is, and I'm happy that it is part of the action plan that DOD and Armscor has elaborated, which is that contract management by Armscor on work on programs that are placed with the DNL seem to be not strong enough. Project management is not strong enough. The things that would ordinarily happen when you have ordered goods in this environment, they are not happening. The procedures are not adhered to. There is for lack of a better description, there's a sweetheart relationship. If we are to talk in very strict terms from a business point, there's a sweetheart relationship between Armscor and DNL. And perhaps it explains also why we had the unfortunate losses we have incurred around Project Hoof Easter. Project contract management is not strong enough. And it is one of the areas I think we can do with the significant improvements there. I am also happy that the very technical issues and challenges involved in the procurement of spares has been sufficiently ventilated to the Joint Standing Committee because we have recently had this discussion of just how intricate the management of a consistent supply of parts can pose a challenge to us. So it is something which I have a full appreciation of, and there are now very clear statements that are made about what we need to do. Yes, money is, the availability of funds is a challenge, but I think managerially also we can minimize the inconveniences that are plaguing those who are responsible for delivering the service that Defence Force must provide to the country. The officials have regretted the misunderstanding with respect to the information that was prepared for this engagement, and the willingness on the part of the department to, in future engagements, bring back the information that the Oversight Joint Standing Committee wanted to have sight of, will hopefully bring in or ensure that the Joint Standing Committee is satisfied with what they always want to have visibility of. With that said, Chair and honorable members, I think the engagement, the information shared was fruitful, and the strong emphasis laid by the Joint Standing Committee on what the weaknesses are, I think it will go a long way in assisting management to improve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DM. I think that gives us a landing. May I request the SecDef to ensure we get this information on the status of maintenance stroke repair contracts available before we do the budget. So can this information be made available by Friday next week?
Chair, thank you. We will try and do that.
We'll try and do that. Okay, maybe we can then end this meeting on that note. Colleagues, let me thank you, DM, Acting SecDef and the COC, Chief of Staff, and all other colleagues from the DOD, SNDF, who came to support the SecDef to do the presentation today. Colleagues, I'm not quite certain, but we still need to do the last item, the program for the term. I'm not going to keep you more than 10 minutes. If you could just lend me 10 minutes of your time, we conclude the program and then defer the minutes to another date. So you are free, SecDef and the Chief of Staff and the team from SNDF, you and DOD are free to exit the system at any time you wish to do so.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, members, and thank you, DM.
Thanks.
Chair, thank you very much, and honorable members, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, DM. All right, colleagues, this is the program for the Joint Standing Committee on Defense that we are presenting today. Today is the 20th, when we're dealing with those items, except the minutes that we are deferring. Next week, we don't have a meeting. It's the Freedom Day period. So on the 4th, we're meeting to take the briefing by the military ombuds on its annual plan, including the implementation of the ombuds recommendations. And then we deal with our own plan. There is an JSCD annual performance plan. And then on the 11th, briefing by the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Staff on the level of satisfaction with services rendered by DINEL and efforts to improve cooperation. I'm not too sure if this item is still relevant. Let us reflect on it, given the outcome of the meeting today. Then on the 18th is a briefing by the Navy on its expenditure plans, contracting details and timeframes for repairs and maintenance of frigates and submarines. Update by the Navy on the status of Bureau and Project Hotel. And then lastly, update on the border operations, as well as the success they're making in the acquisition of technology. And then briefing by the DOD on the level of cooperation with the Border Management Agency. And then just go to the last item, June. Right. And then, sorry. And then in June, we take the briefing by the Military Health Services. And then 8th is a briefing by NCACC and the DCAA on their first quarterly report. And then an update on the progress regarding the defense industry engagement, on the engagement they have with them. And then we close the meeting, or there's a closed meeting on the 15th to have a briefing on Mozambique and MONUSCO in view of the challenges that we're facing. We're not making any suggestion as to the thing, but we just want to get a briefing. We're in Mozambique, we're in DRC. For how long are we going to remain there? What is the prognosis? Are we winning or we're losing? And so on and so forth. So that's the discussion we'll be having in the closed meeting. In other words, it's just that geopolitical discussion with the defense force. All right. Right, colleagues, that's the program that we are presenting today. There any comments?
No problem, sir.
No problem. Okay.
No problem, Chair.
No problem. Thank you very much, Matopo. So the program is adopted, as therefore adopted, subject to that comment I made, that we need to make an assessment whether we still need that meeting on DNL, given the progress that they've made or they are making. But we'll come back to it at some point. Colleagues, that then...
Sorry, Chair. So I will have Mr. Murray as the mover and Ms. Nutapa as the seconder of the adoption of the
program. Yes, correct. Colleagues, I'm thanking you very much. We have gone beyond our time. I think it's 27 minutes. That remains for me to thank all of you for this meeting. The meeting
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, and a very good night to you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
Chair. Good night, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Chair.
This is good.